This is the Reviewing Network Live, a weekly stream of consciousness recording session where I sit back with you folks out there, talk about some of the big news stories from the past week, and some other things I found that might be of amusement to you out there. I think you might get a kick out of it. Now, these are more like audio podcasts and are much longer than my usual videos and are also, for the most part, unedited and will contain some foul language. So, if you're easily offended by that, I advise you to maybe step back a bit, maybe go somewhere else. But hey, if you're up to the challenge, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Thanks. And for the 101st time ever, we are live from the Reviewing Network studios. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Reviewing Network Live on this lovely first Sunday of August 2025. And as you heard, this is now the next 100 episodes of the Reviewing Network Live. We had our big 100th episode celebration last week. Thank you all to those who watched it, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you are sticking around here to the channel to see the next 100 episodes and many, many more to come. Got some interesting stories from all across the entertainment landscape and some things worth talking about related to certain movies that came out this past week. Lots of stuff to get to here, so let's get started with what we usually begin here with on the show, and that is, of course, the weekend box office, which, it's interesting to say the least. A couple of movies opened up and didn't do bad business, but didn't do, like, staggering business overall, but did good enough to... We'll delve into it as we go along here, but let's start off with, let's start what we usually start off with the top 5. Number 5 on the list, still hanging in there after 5 weeks, Jurassic World Rebirth, which brought in $8.7 million this weekend, dropping 34% from last weekend, bringing its 5-week total now to $317.6 million. If you count worldwide numbers, it's up to $766 million worldwide. Don't think it's going to hit the billion-dollar mark before it's all said and done, but then again, you never know. The worldwide audiences could come and save that film in particular, but anyway, number 4, another movie we've talked about in great length, Superman, still hanging in there, even though it fell off a couple spots. $13.9 million, bringing it up to 44% of a drop-off, and its total now is up to $316.2 million after 4 weeks. The worldwide numbers for that, $551 million worldwide, so it has not been doing the best business overseas. That's been kind of a big story with this particular film, but nevertheless, the film is still doing gangbuster business. It's actually DC's first $300 million movie they've had since The Batman, and more than likely it's going to end up being the highest grossing comic book movie of the year, because we'll get to the Fantastic Four in just a little bit here, but that fell off a little bit more than most people were expecting, but Superman's still doing really good business, still hanging in there, and could still have a possibility to maybe not. I was about to say maybe it has a chance to surpass Lilo and Stitch as the big hit of the summer, but doesn't really look like that now, because that's still $100 million away, which, by the way, Lilo & Stitch is up to $421.2 million after 11 weeks out. So that, at least that one's getting closer to possibly knocking off Minecraft movie as the top grossing film of the year. Superman, I think it's going to be a tough task for it to get to there, but nobody's really complaining about how the film is doing. It's doing gangbuster business. It's already surpassed all the other Superman movies, so they're good to go on that front. But that brings us to the new releases this week, starting at number 3, which, number 3 is The Naked Gun, which stars Liam Neeson in the role of Frank Drebin Jr., the son of Leslie Nielsen's Frank Drebin from the Naked Gun movies. Seems like a low number, but $17 million, probably not the opening that the studio was really hoping for. They were hoping maybe for something a little bit bigger in the $30 million range, but regardless, I think they're more than okay with that, per se. This is actually, believe it or not, this is actually the highest opening for a comedy so far since COVID-19. I didn't even notice that, but yeah, it actually surpassed No Hard Feelings, which brought in like $15 million when that came out in 2023, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, $15 million. So yeah, this actually is one of the higher grossing comedies since COVID-19 happened, which is hard to believe, because we've had a lot of good comedies, but they have not done good business overall. But you know, Naked Gun, $17 million. This thing only cost $42 million to make, but the word of mouth for this is really good. It's got an A- on CinemaScore. I think on Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic, it's very highly rated. Everyone I've seen that have seen the film, seen and heard that have seen the film really love it. Friends that I know really love the movie. So I think the word of mouth on this is going to keep it going throughout the next couple of weeks and months. One would hope. And it should make that money back easily when it's all said and done. But yeah, the movie overall was really good. I was actually really impressed on how much they did a really good job of making this work as it did. Because if you don't know, The Naked Gun is my favorite comedy of all time. And, you know, you're remaking one of my favorite movies of all time. You better know what you're doing. And, you know, Seth MacFarlane, I think, knows exactly what he's doing. I mean, this is the guy that used a lot of Naked Gun style humor in Family Guy and American Dad. He pays homage to it all the time, and I think he was the right guy to be behind this movie. You have Akiva Schaffer, who's also done a very good job of making some really good, funny comedies. These two meshings of comedic talents coming together, along with a cast that includes Liam Neeson and Pam Anderson knocking it out of the park. Yeah, everything was working out well for this movie, and hopefully that will continue to have the legs and the word of mouth in the months to come, in the weeks to come, and I think it'll do very well overall. So we'll see what happens if it brings the not only comedy back, but spoof comedy to what spoof comedy should be, because this movie was literally what spoof comedy is all about. So, yeah, we can forget about the Freeburg Seltzer movies. If we get more comedies like The Naked Gun, I think we should be all very, very happy with what's to come in the future. But then we get to the number 2 movie, which kind of came and went, in my opinion. Like, I knew it was coming out, but there really wasn't that big of a push for this movie, especially late on down the road. The Bad Guys 2, which didn't do bad numbers overall, $22.2 million, which is not bad numbers, especially when you consider that the first Bad Guys movie opened up in the same area, if I'm not mistaken. I'm trying to see if I can find the numbers here. I think it was in that same category. It's actually opened a little bit less than that. $23.9 million was the original one, and this one is $22.2 million. Both of them still had the budget of $80 million, so they are keeping it relatively cheap, but it still looks very impressive no matter how you look at it. And, I mean, I think the box office overall is a kind of good sum of the movies themselves. They're good, fun movies. The second one I did enjoy. I don't think it really elevated itself is above the previous movie, like some of the other great DreamWorks sequels that we've had. You know, Shrek 2, Puss in Boots, Kung Fu Panda, How to Train Your Dragon, those movies. But that doesn't make The Bad Guys 2 a bad movie by any means necessary. I think there is still a lot there to really appreciate about this movie. And I think there is a lot of good things about the film that do make it work. My only real concern overall is the fact that maybe they shouldn't have released this in August. Opening a kids movie in August is not as easy to do, and usually they don't do very well in the month of August. I mean, you get a couple of exceptions here and there, but for the most part, the box office in the month of August is usually, for kids movies, is usually not that great. So for this to do as well as it did, as I just closed the page by accident, hold on. Yeah, so the overall numbers for this are not really that different compared to what the original film did. I mean, this is decent numbers overall, but maybe releasing this in the month of August is not a good sign for this movie going forward. But also keep in mind that the family film market this summer has not been that strong. We've had some good movies like, you know, Lilo and Stitch, Elio, which I feel like should have made much more money than a lot of other movies that came out this summer, but it didn't. And so we have this one here, and you know, we just had The Smurfs, which wasn't that great of a kids film. And yeah, it's very light in terms of what is a good kids movie fare out there this summer. I mean, Elio's probably out of most theaters by now. Smurfs is still hanging around in a couple of places, but nobody really cares about that movie, as that fell off nearly 70% from last week. But I mean, maybe this is a good sign for The Bad Guys too. Maybe it can make more. Maybe it can make just as much as the original film did, or maybe even more than that, considering there isn't a big lack of family films out there, although we are going to get one big one this Friday, but we'll talk more about that in a little bit. Let's get to the number 1 movie, because this is where it gets kind of interesting here, because, yeah, The Fantastic Four: First Steps, not really much of a shocker to anybody that was the number 1 movie, but it did have a significant drop-off compared to what people were expecting from it. $40 million, it dropped 66% from last week, which brings its 2-week total now to $198.4 million domestically. The account worldwide numbers is closing in on $400 million, $368.7 million worldwide. And it actually ended up making less money in its second weekend. The percentage was much steeper, I should say, than some of the other Marvel movies we've had this year. I mean, you know, Captain America: Brave New World fell off about What did it fall off of? I mean, this one is not as steep as some of the other MCU movies that we've had this year. You know, Captain America: Brave New World fell off 68.3% from its second weekend, and then Thunderbolts, I think, had a much smaller drop off as well, 56.4%. But then you look at Superman. Superman only had a 53% drop off from its second weekend. So I don't know. Maybe it's the kind of fear that, you know, you got two big superhero blockbusters opening up next to each other, so of course one was going to take a little bit more of a nosedive. But neither of these movies are doing bad business. I mean, it's not like this thing is not going to hit $200 million domestically in a long period of time. It's probably going to do it by tomorrow, when we get the Monday numbers up there. But if not by then the numbers for the box office on Monday will definitely put it over $200 million. Like, it's not going to be something where it's just like, it's just going to miss the $200 million mark. It's going to hit it at some point, but I mean, there is a little bit of a cause for concern that maybe there is a little bit of Marvel superhero fatigue at this point. Also, it's important to keep in mind with a movie like with Fantastic Four: First Steps, it's just like, the first weekend obviously was very front-loaded. I mean, a lot of people went to go see it when it came out on the opening weekend. So yeah, the second weekend is going to have this obvious drop-off from the previous week. I mean, Deadpool and Wolverine last year had a big drop-off from its first weekend. It happens all the time. I don't think there's a huge worry here that this movie isn't going to make any bank for Disney or Marvel. I think it's going to do very well for them. I think the word of mouth on this has been really good. It'll have legs over the course of the next month, especially considering that this is usually the time when a weekend like this will usually have films that will stick around no matter what. But I don't really don't think it's that big of a deal overall. I think it will do very well. It will make money in the end. So that's just my thinking behind it. But there was one other new release that came out that just barely missed the top 5, and that was Together, the Dave Franco, Alison Brie horror comedy, where you have these two starring as a couple in the movie, as they are a couple in real life, who find themselves at the crossroads as they move to the country. With tensions already flaring, an encounter with an unnatural force threatens to corrupt their lives, their love, and their flesh. And the posters for this have been very interesting. Like, the one you always see is the one where, you know, you see Dave Franco and Alison Brie's eyes, and their eyelids are literally touching one another. And I think that was an interesting way to sell the film in general here. But the word of mouth on this movie has been really good. It got a lot of good positive reviews. 91% on Rotten Tomatoes. Of course, this is a horror film, so if you go to CinemaScore, it's going to have a low rating of a C+. But this thing did decent. It did do okay. $6.8 million for its 3-day opening. It opened up on a Wednesday, but it brought in $10.8 million after the weekend was over. And the budget on this is only $17 million. So yeah, this movie did overall good business over the weekend, and it should make its money back when it's all said and done. But then that leads into next weekend, and the big questions are going to be, how well will a movie like Freakier Friday and Weapons do? Weapons has the benefit of the good word of mouth from Zach Cregger's last movie, Barbarian, and Freakier Friday is a film that features the return of Lindsay Lohan and Jamie Lee Curtis in yet another legacy sequel. And you know, I know we just had The Naked Gun this weekend, but I really do feel like The Naked Gun is that rare bright spot of a weak summer with a lot of lesser legacy sequels. I still don't think Freakier Friday is going to be that great of a movie. I just really don't. Like, every time I see the trailers on TV now, I just never get the sense that these people are doing this because they really do believe they had something special here. No, they're doing it because it's a quick cash grab, and I really don't know how big the audience for this is really going to be. I don't think it's going to make any kind of money. I don't think it's going to do very well. At least that's my thinking behind it. Now watch it be the #1 movie at the box office next weekend, and then I'll be proven wrong and have to eat a steaming bowl of crow, which, I mean, I wouldn't put it past it if that happens, but yeah, anyway, that is the weekend box office as a whole. Not really a lot to talk about, but notable in the new releases in general here. But with that said, let's go ahead and move on to some of the big news stories that broke out in the world of entertainment, because there is definitely a lot of stories to talk about that I feel are very much worth bringing up here. So one of the first big news stories of the week came early in the week when Eddie Murphy was on the Today Show promoting his upcoming film to pick up for Amazon MGM, which you can watch on Prime Video. I haven't watched it yet, but got a good cast. Him, Pete Davidson, Keke Palmer. Might check it out at some point, but in this interview, he talked about some projects he's got working on, and one of the ones that there were some ones that we kind of knew about. Shrek 5 was one of the things he mentioned. He was mentioning the Donkey spinoff that they're going to be doing, but in this interview here, he says, as I'm reading it here on the Today website, Eddie Murphy is going to think Pink. The comedy legend has revealed that he will take on a role of Inspector Clouseau in a new Pink Panther movie. Murphy said playing the iconic characters on the docket of his upcoming projects. As he says, I'm getting ready to do a George Clinton Parliament Funkadelic. I'm getting ready to do George Clinton. He told Al Roker about playing the funk music legend in an interview that aired July 28th on Today. And I've got a little bit of that interview here.
Armored truck drivers, Murphy, and co-star Pete Davidson, who are ambushed by a criminal mastermind played by Kiki Palmer. It's a buddy action comedy, a genre Eddie helped create.
It sounds pretentious to actually say it, but my film's kind of pioneered. 48 Hours is the first action comedy, and Beverly Hills Cop was the second. And then after Beverly Hills Cop, all the cops were like, hasta la vista, baby.
It seems a little egotistical to say that 48 Hours was the first action comedy. I mean, it was one of the pioneer action comedies. I'm pretty sure there was a couple before then, but it was I don't know. Maybe I'm just overthinking that, but I want to get to the point where he's talking about, because I was going to read it from the article here, but I might as well just go ahead and let you listen to it from the man himself.
But after 40 years, he acknowledges his roles in these films just a little different.
Usually I'm the young maverick guy, and now...
Hold on, let me see if I can skip to the part where he's talking about movies he's got working on.
Actress.
All right, here we go.
The spirit, energy, she does everything.
In one of our earlier interviews, you talked about how you were going to be slowing down. Hey, look, you've got like 9 projects in the hopper. It seems like you're busier than ever.
I had planned on slowing down, and things just happened. Get ready to do a George Clinton Parliament Funkadelic. I'm getting ready to do George Clinton. Already started Shrek 5, and I'm Inspector Clouseau in the next Pink Panther.
Wait, what?
Yeah, I'm the new Clouseau.
Even Al Roker's looking at him just like, what the fuck? Like, I love that expression from Al Roker when he said that. It's just like, what the fuck did you just say?
You're the new Inspector Clouseau?
Yeah, I'm the new Clouseau.
Now, are you French in this?
Maybe.
Maybe.
We have to be.
Well, I don't think there actually is a script out for this yet, but let me see if there's anything else in here before I get on with the rest of the article.
The Haitian.
Oh. Uh-huh.
I'll tell you, he's black. He's black.
We know he's black.
He's black.
Murphy's made it clear. He considers it...
Okay, it looks like they're going to something else, but I found that kind of interesting that he just came out and said, yeah, I'm going to be Inspector Clouseau, even though we haven't really had a full update on this Pink Panther movie for a while now. I mean, if it's the one I'm thinking of here, it's the one that it's like going to be like a live-action animated hybrid from the same people that did Sonic the Hedgehog. And I'm trying to see here. It says Murphy, who has been linked to Inspector Clouseau for years, also has his eyes on another famous 1960s film. This I didn't even know about. Previously saying he's interested in remaking the 1963 comedy It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. Now that one, I'm not gonna lie, I would kind of like to see that. I would kind of like to see the return of this big budget ensemble comedies like that movie and Cannonball Run and what was another one? What was another one of those comedies that had that star-studded cast in there? Not Smokey and the Bandit, but like movies like It's a Mad, 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 Mad World and Cannonball Run. I would like to see a return to that per se. So I wouldn't mind him doing that in particular, but as Inspector Clouseau, I mean, that's a tough character to play, and nobody has been really able to capture that magic that Peter Sellers had back in the day. Even guys that have played him when Peter Sellers was Inspector Clouseau. Remember, there was that Inspector Clouseau spinoff with Alan Arkin, which wasn't a bad movie per se, but you could definitely tell it was nowhere near as good as what Peter Sellers brought to the table. But even Steve Martin, which I do like the first Steve Martin Pink Panther movie, second one not so much. Even he was kind of pushing it a little bit there. But they've been talking about doing this reboot for a while now, and my only real thinking behind this is that maybe Eddie Murphy's taking this project on because he's kind of bummed about the fact that he had a chance to be, most people forget that he was up for Who Framed Roger Rabbit back in the day. He could have played opposite Roger Rabbit in that movie, and it would have been something very interesting to see how he would match up with him compared to Bob Hoskins, but, of course that didn't work out, and probably for the best overall. I don't know, with the Pink Panther, it's really, really hard for me to say this is the right direction to go. As much as I love Eddie Murphy, and I like the fact that he's still very much working at this point in time. Like, he's still very much in the swing of becoming... He's very much the same guy that can still be entertaining no matter what you see him in. Like, even movies that are not great, like Candy Cane Lane was not a great movie, but he was fine in that movie. You People, not a great movie either, but again, not really terrible either. But I'm surprised they didn't bring up the Donkey spin-off, because that was the big thing that everyone was really talking about this week, was the fact that, he's doing that. But I don't know. I don't know if I could see him doing the Pink Panther in general. Like, I've had this idea of what a Pink Panther reboot should be like. And honestly, if I had to say it, I probably would go with somebody. My dream one right now is Taika Waititi doing a Pink Panther reboot, directing it, and having Lin-Manuel Miranda playing Inspector Clouseau. Like, in my personal opinion, that I think is the right direction to go with that. But then again, that's just my personal thoughts on that. But I did find the Hollywood Reporter article about the other thing that I wanted to talk about with Eddie Murphy, because he did let it slip in there that he is doing a Donkey spin-off movie, and he's actually about to start recording dialogue for it, as it says here, as this pop-up goes away. It says, the 64-year-old comedy icon, and I'll tell you this, for 64 years old, he does not look like he's aged a day at all. Like, he does not look like he has old gray hair. I mean, the guy still looks like he did 20 years ago, and hey, good on him, man. I mean, whatever he's doing, keep it up. But excuse me. But the 64-year-old comedy icon was promoting his upcoming film, The Pickup, when he was asked about his upcoming role in Shrek 5. Murphy says he's currently recording the DreamWorks release, but is then going to start recording dialogue for a Shrek spin-off film centering around his beloved donkey character. We're still in the booth, and literally we're still doing Shrek, he told Screen Rant. So that's where this is at, Screen Rant. We'll start in September on Donkey. We're doing a Donkey one, and that'll be released 3 years from now, so 2028, he says. But we're about 2 years into Shrek 5, still in the booth, and about to start Donkey in September. But then again, when it comes to Eddie Murphy, I wouldn't automatically trust him when it comes to release dates. I mean, listen to what he had to say about Shrek 3.
You know what I do love, though? Parfaits. Do you like parfaits, Larry? But Larry, I'm sorry. There's nothing I can do. But let your kid know that Shrek 3 is coming out in 2006.
That's a lie, because that came out in May of 2007. But I'm kidding, by the way. That's actually a clip from Father of the Pride, which was a show that was a big deal back then, because it was supposed to be the first big adult animated comedy series done in CG, even though Game Over had just premiered a couple months earlier. But came and went. It was at that time when NBC was losing Frasier and Friends, and they were hoping that these new hits that they were going to have were going to be the next big thing, and the thing only lasted one season. It wasn't a bad show. It definitely was a very odd show, to say the least. And they had a big episode where Eddie Murphy reprised the role of Donkey coming onto the show, and that was like one of the big episodes they were going to sell the show on. And I think the show was canceled not too long after that, but that was one of the jokes from that particular show. I mean, like I said, it wasn't a bad show, but it definitely wasn't. It was a bizarre show, to say the least. That's worth doing either a video or a post about, which I think I've done on the site before, But going back to the article at hand here, we're doing a Donkey one, and that'll be released 3 years from now, we think. But we're about 2 years into Shrek 5, still in the booth, and about to shoot Donkey in September. Continued Murphy, Donkey's going to be like how Puss in Boots had his own movie. Donkey's going to have his own movie, his own little story with his dragon wife and his kids that are half dragon and half donkeys. They've written this funny story. We're doing that starting in September. Murphy had teased a Donkey movie in the past, but these are his most substantive comments yet. DreamWorks had no comment, but a spin-off about the fan-favorite character certainly sounds like a viable project, especially given the box office success of the two Puss in Boots spin-off films. That could be an idea that could be interesting it could be an interesting way to continue the Shrek series without doing another movie in particular. I'm still having my doubts about Shrek 5 in general, but I'm not against the idea overall. Plus, I do like the idea that the characters have all aged, and I think that's a really fun idea to have all the Shrek characters age after all this time. So I think that could be really fun to see, but I don't know. I don't know. This could be interesting to see, but I mean, I'll give it this. It sounds a lot more promising than Eddie Murphy as Inspector Clouseau. But then again, who would have thought a Naked Gun reboot with a Liam Neeson would turn out to be as great as it was? I mean, but that's just my personal take on that. So that's that story. So let's go ahead and move on to our next story, which finally somebody is doing what I've been saying that they should have been doing with bad movies for so many years. Finally, somebody is taking a bad movie from the past and remaking it for a new generation. Or at least I think it's a bad movie, but this was an interesting story that came out, that there's going to be a new comedy series based off of the movie Stay Tuned, and done by somebody who is kind of getting involved with a lot of these different projects from Reboot projects, Josh Gad. As the story here from Deadline Hollywood says, Hulu is developing Stay Tuned, a comedy series headlined and executive produced by Josh Gad and Andrew Reynolds. Loosely based on the 1992 cult classic film of the same name starring John Ritter and Pam Dauber, Stay Tuned was created by Akiva Goldsman, Jordan Cahan, and Greg Lessons, with Cahan set as showrunner. In the TV series take, Reynolds and Gad will find themselves trapped on the wrong side of the screen and forced to navigate their way through TV's most binge-worthy obsessions. Gad and Reynolds executive produced alongside Goldsman and Leesons via Weed Road Productions, Morgan Creek's James G. Robinson and David Robinson, and Aaron Semmel. Thought I could get that before I had to burp, but no. Morgan Creek produced the movie, directed by Peter Hyams, which starred Ritter and Dauber as a suburban couple who are unwillingly transported into television by a satanic embassy and must survive 24 hours of being bounced from one dangerous situation to another inside various films and TV shows. Now, the thing about that movie is that it wasn't just regular television shows. Like, it wasn't just the typical reality shows. It was, like, darker parodies of different things in entertainment. Like, you'll have something like The Silencer of the Lambs. It's a family comedy set in the world of Silence of the Lambs. Or you'll have The Exorcist, where you'll see this exercise program, but the lady will turn their head like the girl from The Exorcist. You know, there's parodies of Wayne's World, except it's like the underworld, that type of stuff. Like, it was a movie that was very ambitious. It was a very ambitious film for the time, but it definitely is a movie that I would not say is a great movie. And far from it. I would honestly say that it definitely is a film that has a really good idea, but the premises are really not, the jokes really are not that funny. Like, I mean, going back to my old review for it, like, this is one of those ones where, like, a lot of the parodies don't work because they're just kind of lazy. Like, The Silencer of the Lambs, Three Men and Rosemary's Baby, Unmarried with Children, Northern Overexposure, Saturday Night Dead. It's just like, it seems like really cheap, lazy stuff like you would expect to see on, like, an episode of Tiny Toons and Animaniacs. And it's PG because, you know, we gotta bring the kids into this. There's two scenes in particular in that movie that I thought were very funny. It's a very short one, but there's a great one where John Ritter gets stuck inside of a Three's Company parody, and, you know, you have the two girls coming into the house with him dressed up in the old suit he used to wear, and it's just like, where have you been? And then he looks at the screen and just, like, starts screaming at the top of his lungs and flips the channel. Like, it's a short bit, but it's a hilariously done bit. And, of course, you can never go wrong with Chuck Jones's parody of the Looney Tunes in there, because it's his animation overall, and it's really good animation. You could tell where the budget of this really went forward with it. I think the reason why the film didn't work was because a couple things. One, the jokes were not very funny. Two, the PG rating. And three, I think a guy like Tim Burton would have made this work. And he was attached to direct this at one point, but he left this to do Batman Returns, which proved to be the more financial success, but not as good as the original Batman movie. But, I mean, it wasn't a bad movie per se, but it was definitely one of those movies that had a really good premise overall, but it just never lived up to it fully. There were a couple good laughs here and there, but it was never enough to make me say that, yeah, this is definitely a film that deserves more attention. But, I mean, I don't know about this idea of them just doing parodies for the sake of parodies, unless you're going to do it something like you did with the original idea of Stay Tuned, but except make it much more funnier and know that you're not going to have this PG rating behind you. You're on Hulu, so you basically have free range to pretty much do whatever you want to do with it. Like, if they can do that, I think it could work really well, but I don't know. It's definitely something that I'm curious about, but hey, it's the direction that I want them to go with this. Like, you know, start remaking bad movies, films that had good premises, but the final project was not good. Do more stuff like that. We don't need to see reboots of good movies and films that didn't need sequels. Like, if you're gonna do this, do it with films that were terrible from the beginning and fix them. Try to fix them around, and hopefully this is a sign of that's going to happen. But it is interesting to see Josh Gad getting involved in a lot of these older reboot projects, because he was attached at one point to the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids movie, which I don't think they're going to do anymore. But then he also is working on the Spaceballs sequel that's coming out. So, I don't know. Maybe this is a new trend for him overall. I mean, he can't play Olaf forever, pretty much. Or maybe he will. I mean, Disney will try. Disney at this point, what has been their biggest franchise creator outside of Frozen, Moana, and Encanto since then? Not really, not a whole lot, because all their original stuff, they just ship it off to Disney Plus, or don't even bother to give it a big promotional push so it bombs at the box office. So, I don't know. I'm just kind of rambling on at this point. But, yeah, so that's the story about Stay Tuned. Let's go ahead and move on to our next story. So it looks like The Social Network Part 2 is definitely moving much more further than I think a lot of people were expecting, because they're already starting to bring in a lot of different people for the movie here. And one of the ones that was interesting right out of the get-go, I'm surprised by this, they're not bringing Jesse Eisenberg back for this movie as Mark Zuckerberg. Instead, they're looking to possibly bring in Jeremy Strong to play the role of Zuckerberg, as according to the Hollywood Reporter here. And they talk about some other casting news that we'll get into just a little bit, but add Jeremy Strong to the list of bold-faced names circling Aaron Sorkin's The Social Network Part 2. Sorkin, who won an Academy Award for penning the 2010 original movie, wrote the script and will direct the Sony drama that is inspired by a series of articles Jeff Horowitz wrote for the Wall Street Journal known as the Facebook Files. And I'll save the next paragraph for the next thing I want to talk about here. But insiders stress that no offers have been made and that the film is still in the development process, although the project is a top priority for the studio and moving fast. While the acclaimed 2010 drama focused on the making of Facebook, now known as Meta, the story of the new feature will focus on how the company's own reporting points to the negative effects the company's social media was having on teens and kids, how it knew misinformation was proliferating and causing violence, and how it contributed to the coup attempt on January 6, 2021. If offers and indeed deal-making closes, or they're talking about the story here, but the big question is, who could Strong be playing? Sources say that there is a role for a WSJ editor, but the other option is a doozy, Facebook Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg. So it's not official that Jesse Eisenberg is out for this, but it says in the next paragraph, one source says that Jesse Eisenberg, who earned an Oscar nomination for his portrayal of Zuckerberg, has passed, at least at this time, on reprising the part. Whether that is a negotiating tactic or not remains to be seen. So, okay, so it sounds like that maybe Eisenberg is still in it, but Jeremy Strong coming in there to possibly play him, I don't know how I feel about that. The guy can be a really good actor, but you got him replacing a role played by Jesse Eisenberg, and these are two very different actors, like in the way that they talk and the way they look. So I'm not entirely sure that this could work if it is him being if it is Jeremy Strong as Zuckerberg. But then again, we'll wait to see what happens on that front. But the story before this week came out that they were looking at a couple of other big names for this. Mikey Madison, who won the Oscar for Honora, and Jeremy Allen White, who is looking to possibly win his third acting Emmy for The Bear, and will also star in the upcoming Springsteen biopic coming out in October. It says here they're circling the lead roles in the sequel to The Social Network. Let me see if it says... Here it is. Madsen would play Frances Hagen, the data engineer turned whistleblower who went to the SEC and the Wall Street Journal for her information. White will play the former WSJ tech reporter who leads the breaking of the Facebook files. One source says that the project has shades of The Insider from 1999 from Michael Mann that told of a whistleblower blowing the lid off the tobacco industry by talking to 60 Minutes. Another source said the project has shades of Spotlight, the 2015 movie that centered on reporters for the Boston Globe investigating child sex abuse by the city's Roman Catholic clergy. But it says here David Fincher's directed the original, and okay, nothing there. Actually, I'm looking at the two pictures of Mikey Madsen and Frances Hagen, and again, these two really do not look like each other, the same person, so I don't know how that's going to work. I think you need to have like a really good makeup job on Mikey Madsen to really make it look like her, because yeah, it's definitely, these two do not look like the same people, but overall, yeah, this could be a very, I don't know, I'm still kind of intrigued by this, but I don't know how good this could possibly be. I feel like this is probably an unnecessary sequel, but if you get people that have been recent Oscar nominees and winners like Mikey Madsen, Jeremy Allen White, and Jeremy Strong, I think it can make it work. Plus, Aaron Sorkin's been a good director overall, so I don't think would be that bad overall. But it just seems really odd, to say the least, that Jeremy Strong playing a character that was played already very well by Jesse Eisenberg and Mark Zuckerberg. That's, like I said, Jeremy Strong and Jesse Eisenberg are two very different acting styles that are going to be really hard to convince the audience that they're both the same person. But then again, stranger things have happened, so we will see how that pans out. So let's go ahead and move on to the next story, and that is a story about the Oceans prequel. Yeah, they're tapping Lee Isaac Chung, who last summer gave us Twisters, a movie that I really didn't like, but apparently a lot of people did. It was a big hit. He's being brought in to direct the Oceans prequel at Warner Brothers, as this article from Deadline Hollywood says. It says, "We are hearing that two-time Oscar-nominated Minari filmmaker Lee Isaac Chung is in talks to direct the Oceans prequel for Warner Brothers that Lucky Chap is producing. In true Oceans fashion, the plot is locked in the vault. The project remains in early development with no cast deals in place at this time." So, is this the one that supposed to have Ryan Gosling and Margot Robbie back in it, or not? Or is that even happening anymore? But it says here, the current screenplay is by Kerry Solomon and based on characters created by George Clayton Johnson and Jack Golden Russell. The Las Vegas heist series of movies originally made famous for the 1960 first installment starring 5 members of the Rat Pack, Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., Peter Lawford, and Joey Bishop, along with Angie Dickinson, has been a cornerstone franchise for Warner Brothers. Steven Soderbergh rebooted the series in 2001 with a new trilogy starring George Clooney, Brad Pitt, Matt Damon, Andy Garcia, and Julia Roberts. There was also a 2018 all-female version starring Sandra Bullock, Anne Hathaway, and Cate Blanchett. The 4 movies cleared north of $1.4 billion at the world box office. Chung was nominated for Best Director and Original Screenplay for A24's Minari, which also won the Grand Jury and Audience Awards at Sundance in 2020, and garnered Golden Globe and Critics' Choice wins. Minari was nominated for 6 Oscars, winning one for Yu Jung as Best Supporting Actress. Anything else of noteworthiness to say? Does not look like there is, but so yeah, I don't know if this is the same movie that it's supposed to have Ryan Gosling and Margot Robbie in it, because that was one they were talking about for a long time, and I did not see their names in this category in this article that I read here. So I don't know. I don't know if this is actually going to get made with Margot Robbie or Ryan Gosling, or it's going to be something completely different because their names were not in that article here. Although I'm looking right now on some of these other pages here, and it still says that Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling are still involved on these other articles here. So I guess this is what's going to happen here. But I don't know. We'll see what happens on that front. I've liked most of the Ocean's 11 movies. The Ocean's 12, I think, is the worst one easily. The one that basically had no idea what its purpose for existing was. But Ocean's 11, Ocean's 13, and Ocean's 8 were really good. So yeah, I'll be curious to see how that one pans out. So let's go ahead and move on to the next story here. And the James Bond movie is moving fast and furious, as now we have the director involved, and now we've got the writer involved for this. And like I said, the James Bond movie is moving fast and furious. They tapped Denis Villeneuve to direct the film not too long ago, and now they have a writer involved. Stephen Knight is the latest name to join the James Bond creative team. And the article from The Hollywood Reporter says this: Knight will write the script for filmmaker Denis Villeneuve, who is directing the next James Bond film for Amazon MGM Studios, and producer Amy Pascal and David Heyman. Knight's hiring marks an end of an era for the Bond franchise, at least in terms of its writers. Actor Daniel Craig said goodbye to the character with 2021's No Time to Die, which also was the last Bond movie to be shaped by longtime scribes Neil Purvis and Robert Wade, who worked on the franchise beginning with 1999's The World Is Not Enough. Knight is a respected scribe who is working on a Peaky Blinders film, and whose past works included the 2002 feature Dirty Pretty Things, for which he earned an original screenplay Oscar nomination, Eastern Promises, and Spencer, as well as creating the Jason Momoa Apple series C. His lengthy list of TV credits also include Taboo, Rogue Heroes, 1,000 Blows, This Town, The Veil, and All the Light We Cannot See. On the film side, he's written projects ranging from Tom Hardy's Lock to a stint writing Daisy Ridley's upcoming Star Wars movie before exiting. The next Bond movie will be the first without longtime franchise stalwarts Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson, who in February reached a deal to allow Amazon creative control over the franchise. So they've hired a pretty good writer overall who's written some stuff I've liked. I did like Eastern Promises a lot, and I do like Spencer a lot. The Kristen Stewart Princess Diana movie. I thought that was really good. I just watched it again recently. Really well done. I thought that movie was great. I thought Kristen Stewart should have won the Oscar for that performance, honestly, but But yeah, not much more to say about this in particular. That the fact that it is coming together, this new James Bond movie. I wouldn't be surprised if by the year is over, we eventually get an inevitable release date, probably in 27 or 28 at this point, because it looks like they're moving fast and furious on this project. But that said, I do want to bring up one thing that I found out was kind of interesting. There was an article online about Tom Holland, and there's casting rumors about him playing James Bond. And I have the article here from Deadline. And it says here, if there's any truth to rumors that Tom Holland is in the running to play James Bond, he's keeping it top secret for now. As the BAFTA winner returns to one major franchise with Friday's Spider-Man Brand New Day teaser, talk more about that in a second, but he recently commented on speculation that he's up for the coveted part in the Denis Villeneuve-helmed update of the franchise. Listen, there's speculation at the moment. We'll keep it at a minimum for now, he said in the video on Gordon Ramsay's YouTube. We'll get there one day. Holland added, every young British actor, it's the pinnacle of working in our industry. I always considered myself to be the luckiest kid alive. I could have never dreamed to have had the career that I had. Is there anything else in this article here? It doesn't say here, but, he says the title is literally, there's speculation, and I guess that's it about that, but here's the thing. Tom Holland is a great actor, and maybe he could play James Bond if he was a little older. Like Tom Holland, I think, is still in his 20s right now, if I'm not mistaken. If he's not in his 20s, he just turned 30, I would think. Yeah, he's 29 right now. He'll turn 30 on June 1st of next year. I personally don't think he should be James Bond. Like, if you want to cast him as James Bond, somehow find a way to remake James Bond Jr., that 1990s animated show. Do it as like an Amazon Prime live-action series, but don't make him the main James Bond character. I don't know. I just don't think that he's way too young, I think, to play that role in particular. And I think you should cast a relative newcomer into the role and make that work. But, I don't know. That's just my personal thinking on that front there. But speaking of Tom Holland, he was in the news again this week with news about Spider-Man Brand New Day, as we got to talk about here. So yeah, Spider-Man Brand New Day, there's been a lot of news stories these last couple of days, really, because yesterday morning they revealed the full look for Tom Holland in the new Spider-Man suit as they're filming the movie right now. But then the day before that, on Friday, they made some big casting news, and considering that the last couple of Spider-Man movies have featured characters from the MCU, they figure, what the hell, let's go get another Avenger to come into the film. And lo and behold, we have the news that Mark Ruffalo is coming back as the Incredible Hulk to star in Spider-Man Brand New Day. It says here on the Hollywood Reporter that Spider-Man Brand New Day has found a smashing star to join Tom Holland in the Sony Marvel movie sequel. Mark Ruffalo is returning to reprise the role of Bruce Banner, a.k.a. the Hulk, in the film, which comes 14 years after the actor joined the MCU in the Avengers. The move had been rumored for a while, but only firmed up as the script came together and production gears up for beginning this month in England. At the same time, Michael Mando, known for his work on Better Call Saul, is returning to reprise the role of the Scorpion, the villain character for whom he first played in Spider-Man Homecoming, the 2017 film that kicked off the Holland-centric Spider-Man movies. Holland's Spider-Man film has always paired him with a more seasoned actor, such as Robert Downey Jr. in Homecoming, Samuel L. Jackson in Far From Home, and Benedict Cumberbatch in No Way Home, playing key characters Iron Man, Nick Fury, and Doctor Strange respectively. The movies invoke the tone of a classic Marvel comic Marvel team-up, a series from the 1970s and 80s that features Spider-Man partnering with another hero for an escapade. Brand New Day, however, is stacking the deck. John Barenthal is also on the call sheet to reprise his role of the vigilante known as the Punisher. It's the character's first big-screen appearance in the MCU and first movie appearance in general since 2008's Punisher Warzone, in which the late Ray Stevenson played the role. The plot details are being kept under the vest, but you can bet that in the mighty Marvel manner, Spider-Man, Punisher, and Hulk will all fight one another before figuring out who the real bad guy is. And, yeah, it looks like they're continuing the tradition of the other Spider-Man movies. Destin Daniel Cretton is now directing the film now that John Watts is no longer involved. It has the same regular Spider-Man writers involved here, and it's coming out next year, apparently. So, it's interesting what's going on with the MCU right now, because after Fantastic Four, we don't see another MCU movie until this comes out on July 31st, which I think is kind of interesting that this is now coming out before Avengers and before the next Avengers movie instead of after that. Which, if you remember my Fantastic Four review, it makes me kind of wonder, or if Robert Downey Jr. is going to show up as Doctor Doom in this movie. I mean, it would make sense for like a mid-credit sequence, or a mid-credit sequence where it ties into Avengers Doomsday and Peter mistakes him for Tony Stark, because, you know, Tony Stark is his mentor in these movies. So I'm still convinced that that's probably going to happen in here. And yeah, overall, this seems like they're going back to, they're working with what has been working with the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies. If it ain't broke, why fix it? So yeah, I say keep it up at this point. So anyway, that's that story. So let's go ahead and move on to our next story here. We got a couple of 2027 film announcements here. It's kind of interesting they're announcing this now, which probably means they've got something huge planned for this anniversary coming up. But it would make sense for the 50th anniversary of Star Wars, as I'm reading it from the official Star Wars website. It says, on April 30th, 2027, we'll celebrate the 50th anniversary of Star Wars with a re-release of the 1977 classic back for a limited time in theaters everywhere. And like I said, this is not the first time they have done this, where they've re-released a Spider-Man movie. In fact, sometimes they re-release these movies a week before they come out, and nobody really knows when it comes out, but then it makes a shit ton of money at the box office. Like, Revenge of the Sith did that just this past April. Like, nobody really knew about it. There was no trailer that came out that said, hey, Revenge of the Sith is coming back into theaters, and yet, somehow, some way, people still found out it was coming, and it made over $25 million in that 1 week it was out in theaters. So I mean, people do go to see these movies, and they still want to see them on the big screen again, but it says here it's part of Lucasfilm's year-long 50th anniversary celebration. Star Wars A New Hope will play in theaters over May the 4th holiday, also known as Star Wars Day. And that's pretty much what they'll say on this right now. So I'm guessing there's going to be a lot of big Star Wars announcements coming because, you know, of course, it's the 50th anniversary, but it is kind of interesting that they're just announcing this now and not waiting until, you know, we get closer to the anniversary itself. I mean, they must have something big planned for this event, but that was not the only big story in terms of what's coming out in 2027. As we got the official word that A Quiet Place is coming back. It was announced that this week that John Krasinski will return to write, produce, and direct in Quiet Place Part 3, which will hit theaters on July 9th, 2027. The fourth-time Primetime Emmy-nominated, multi-hyphenated, just revealed the news on social media that he's back to direct, write, and produce the fourth film in the Paramount series. No cast is confirmed at this time, with the story being kept secret. Krasinski and Alice Seeger's Sunday Night Productions are producing with Platinum Dunes. Sunday Night also has a first-look deal with the studio. The A Quiet Place franchise has grossed over $900 million worldwide across its three films, which is comprised of A Quiet Place and A Quiet Place Part 2 and the Michael Sarnowski-directed spin-off A Quiet Place Day 1. The first A Quiet Place took off like a rocket ship at South by Southwest in 2018, leading to an over-indexing $50.2 million opening weekend and a nearly $153 million domestic and $341 million global take. The pick, which starred Krasinski, wife Emily Blunt, Noah Jupe, and Millicent Simmons, received an Oscar nomination for sound editing. A Quiet Place Part 2 saw its release pushed due to COVID, brought the box office back alive during Memorial Day weekend 2021 with a $57 million four-day start, ending with a $160 million domestic and $297.3 global haul. Blunt, Jupe, and Simmons returned for the sequel, which nabbed a BAFTA nomination for Best Sound. Last summer, A Quiet Place Day 1, a prequel set in apocalyptic New York ravaged by the aliens and starring Oscar winner Lupita Nyong'o and Joseph Quinn, debuted to $52.2 million and legged out to $139 million domestically and $262 million global. And then ends here with John Krasinski's Instagram putting the 3 July 9, 2027 for Quiet Place Part 3, which, yeah, I'm definitely excited for this. I've liked the other Quiet Place movies. I've liked what John Krasinski has done as a director, not just with A Quiet Place, but especially what he did last summer with If, which I still think is one of the best movies from last year, and one you should definitely check out. So, yeah, this is definitely one that I'm very curious to see what the direction is they go with this. Will they bring Emily Blunt back, or will they focus on a new family in general? Only time will tell, but, yeah, at least we know now it's coming, so. Speaking of things that we now know is coming, that leads into the last big news story I have for you this week. Yes, after months of speculation, years of speculation, really, it is finally happening. The NFL and ESPN are about to become one. The story first broke over on the New York Post website, not the New York Post, The Athletic, but unfortunately that's one of those things where you have to pay to see the article. But luckily other articles of other websites have caught to the story, so. This is from the Associated Press, who says the NFL and ESPN are expected to announce an agreement next week. Again, one of these pop-ups just came up out of nowhere for no reason, but let me start over again. The NFL and ESPN are expected to announce an agreement next week under which most of the league's significant media holdings would go to the sports network. People familiar with the transaction say the multi-billion-dollar deal would give the NFL an equity stake in ESPN. The people spoke to the Associated Press on condition of anonymity because the deal has not been finalized. It was first reported by The Athletic, the NFL, and ESPN had no comment. The NFL has been trying to sell its media properties for nearly 5 years. ESPN and the league have been involved in on-again, off-again talks for the past 3 years. The proposed move comes as ESPN is expected to soon launch its direct-to-consumer service, possibly by the end of August. The service would give cord cutters access to all of ESPN's programs and networks for $29.99 per month. Most cable, satellite, and viewers who have streaming services will receive the service for free as part of their subscription. ESPN would get access to the popular Red Zone channel, as well as NFL Network and an additional 7 regular season games, 6 international, and a Saturday afternoon late season game. A couple of weeks ago, ESPN announced that NFL Network host Rich Eisen's 3-hour program would air on ESPN Radio, as well as stream on Disney Plus and ESPN Plus. The Rich Eisen show is not affiliated with NFL Network. ESPN has carried NFL games since 1987 and Monday Night Football since 2006. Under the current TV contract, it will have the 2027 and 2031 Super Bowls for the first time. NFL Network started in November 2003 and was the second major pro league to have its own network. NBA TV started in 1999, MLB Network started in 2009, and NHL Network started in 2007. So yeah, this is something that we've been kind of hearing that's going to happen at some point, and it's now officially happened. Now, some say that this is going to be a deal somewhere around $2 billion, which is a pretty big number, but I don't know. When I see $2 billion from a company like Disney, I think to myself, well, they only spent $4 billion to grab Marvel, and I think they spent like $8 billion to grab Fox, and I can't remember how much they spent to get Lucasfilm. I think it was around somewhere between there, like $5 billion. So yeah, $2 billion does not really seem like much of a big deal in terms of what Disney has done in the last 10 years. But I'm trying to see if there's anything else in this article here that should be worth noting. Let's see, anything else? I did find this New York Post article from not too long after this about what might happen to NFL Network now that ESPN is partnering up with them, but according to this, it says, the report noted that within the ESPN family of programming, NFL Network could wind up looking akin to SEC Network, which provides constant programming about the league, while ESPN's flagship channel also broadcasts SEC games and SEC-related shows. A similar setup with on-air talent being used across NFL Network and ESPN other networks is a very, very possible outcome. The report also noted that ESPN is expected to invest in improving NFL Network programming. The NFL hoped NFL Network could be a competitor to ESPN when the network was created in 2003 and featured shows like Good Morning Football, NFL Game Day Kickoff, and The Insiders, but that never materialized. The network had suffered a series of cutbacks over the years, according to the report. The seismic deal also shifts the rights of the NFL Red Zone, produced at the NFL Network studios in Inglewood, California, to ESPN. It's unclear how exactly Red Zone will be packaged and priced, but it is likely to be included as part of ESPN's existing channels and on the worldwide leaders to be released app. In addition to Red Zone and NFL Network, ESPN is expected to gain access to 7 more regular season games, the NFL's fantasy football business, and the potential to integrate other special features, including betting. So yeah, the deal that we've been talking about for a while now seems like it's going to be becoming a reality as soon as this week. I mean, we could get something just before the preseason gets started, so I mean, this is something that could be very interesting to see how this turns out. I mean, think about ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports in the last year, has acquired inside the NBA and has now acquired the NFL Network. I mean, that's a good way to bring people into your company, especially considering the week that they had when they got rid of Shannon Sharp. Which, I mean, Shannon Sharp didn't need ESPN. ESPN needed Shannon Sharp, but I think they'll be more than fine by taking the inside the NBA and also the NFL Network as a nice return. So those are the big entertainment stories this week. I have one more big story that I want to get to, but I want to save that for after this because I want to touch on one thing that happened this week when, we have a big new comedy out this week in The Naked Gun, and I thought of something to bring up this week. So as most of you know, I've touched on how much I love the Naked Gun movies. I've talked about how I think it's the greatest comedy ever made. I think it's one of the funniest comedies ever. It's my favorite comedy of all time, and most people probably wouldn't figure it out that I did not see The Naked Gun the first time in theaters, obviously because I was still in my mother's womb for a month when the movie came out. And I didn't watch the movie until it was when it came out on video. My first real exposure to The Naked Gun was when it was on TV. Because it used to be on television all the time back in the 90s. Like CBS first aired it, the first one in 91, which was when the second film came out. And then and then USA Network used to play it on TV a lot. Like, you couldn't go a weekend without seeing that movie or the other Naked Gun movies on there at least once. And then you'd see it on TBS, TNT, Comedy Central, all the time forward. But most people don't realize that. Most people don't realize that the version of The Naked Gun that airs on TV is radically different than the one that shows up on television, because the TV version has so many different. The TV version has more scenes added into the movie, which I think is very interesting, because usually when it's on television, they edit the stuff out. But this one, they just put stuff back in there. And a lot of the deleted alternate stuff actually made it into the TV cut here. And I kind of want to touch on that. Like, if you were watching The Naked Gun on TV in the 90s, you would have seen that they add more scenes in specific parts of the movie. Like, you know how there's a scene at the end of the hospital scene at the beginning of the movie where, you know, Frank tells Norberg's wife, whatever scum did this, not one man on this force will rest until he's behind bars. And he's just like, no, let's grab a bite to eat. And then they leave the room. That's where it ends in the regular theatrical release of the movie. But if you watch the TV edit of this, you'll see that the scene kind of continues. And it's a really funny scene where they're leaving, and, you know, Frank's turning out all the lights, and he accidentally turns off the thing that's giving Norberg oxygen, and he flatlines, and then you see all these people going into Norberg's room, and then they're walking away as they're hearing "Code Blue, Code Blue," and I've got that clip right here.
There's not one man on this force will rest for 1 minute until he's behind bars. Now let's grab a bite to eat. Yeah, come on.
Now that's where in the movie that ends, but in the TV edit it continues.
Don't worry, Wilma.
The Code Blue in here.
Just be thankful you have to wipe with that fork guy.
I always used to remember that, because that's what. So like I said, this is the first time it's the TVS for the first time I saw that movie, and I remember laughing my ass off the first time I saw that. But then you get like extended versions of different scenes. Like there's the scene shortly afterward where, you know, Frank is in the city hall talking to the reporters about the Queen arriving, and of course there's that scene where, you know, Frank goes to the bathroom and his mic is still on, so everyone's hearing him going to the bathroom, but. For some reason, in the alternate in the version that airs on TV, they take that part out, and it just is like you see Frank going into the bathroom when you watch the regular movie, but then when you watch the TV edit, you see him going into the bathroom, and they don't show the bathroom. They immediately cut back to the reporters in the city hall, I guess, ballroom, if you will.
Is completed in the celebration. Especially exciting.
Yeah, so you don't hear the peeing in the background.
The Queen's public appearances.
I don't know why that is, because I don't know if that's something that you would censor on broadcast television. I don't know. I don't know if that's something that would have made that. It helps CBS get away from the censors and all that. But I don't know. Taking that part out just kind of misses the fun of that joke in general. But also they cut this as well. They cut the part where the mayor's about to go back into his speech, and Frank starts peeing again. And then at the end he farts. But in the TV edit,
we also would like.
Yeah, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense why they took that out, because it just the laugh really isn't there, in my opinion, when you see that part. But let's see what else is there. There's like an extended version of the dock scene. Here's one that I thought was really, really odd. Like one of the most famous lines from the original movie is when Leslie Nielsen meets Priscilla Presley for the first time, and you know she's going up that ladder, and then Leslie Nielsen looks like he's looking up her dress, and he's just like, "Nice beaver," And then, of course, it's just like, thank you, I just had his stuff. And he's pulling out the beaver, like, let me help you with that. For some reason, they edited that out of the TV edit for this.
Salary. Nice one.
Thank you. I just had it stuffed.
Let me help you with that.
Which is funny because in the original trailer for the movie, which is seen all over the place, they actually include that line.
Organ donor card.
His girlfriend asked him to look her up.
Nice beaver.
Thank you. I just had it stuffed.
Let me help you with that.
Again, that could just be because of television standards and all that, but I find that kind of odd that CBS doesn't include that in their edits of this, but this is one of my favorite edits that wasn't in the movie. There's that scene where, Norbert's about to get attacked by the doctor, and Frank arrives to see him, and Frank goes like, who's that police officer that was standing at the door? Oh, and the lady at the reception is just like, oh, Lieutenant Drebin called and sent him home. And Frank's like, Lieutenant Drebin? Again, in the movie, that's where that scene ends, but they extend this in the TV version of it, and it's pretty hilarious.
Where's the police officer who's on guard at that door?
Oh, Lieutenant Drebin called and sent him home.
Lieutenant Drebin. Call police one. Tell them 411 is in progress.
411? Oh, my God. Fire.
No. 1411.
1411? Oh, my God. I'm poison gasoline.
No. 1414.
And I love how we never know what a 1414 is, but apparently it's enough to cause women to jump out of a window. And I love how Frank is just like, wait, is it 1414? Or like even he doesn't know what he's doing, but still a great bit overall. There's like an extended version of the noir scene after they get rid of the doctor, and like you see Frank going to all these different places. Like he goes to like a bumper car place, he goes inside of this gym. He's in the women's locker room for some reason, and it's a really good bit, continuing from the scene that was in the original movie.
Life left me shaken and disturbed. I tried to relax.
See, right now he's at the bumper cars.
The questions kept buzzing around my head like a bee in a hamburg full of honey. What had Nordberg been doing in the docks? And what was he trying to tell me? And would I ever be able to talk to my good friend again?
Now he's in the gym.
The incident at the hospital sent Nordberg into a coma.
And that's where the dialogue in the movie starts off with, but this is still extended stuff. Now he's in the women's locker room.
And all the questions kept coming up over and over again, like bubbles in the case of club soda. Did Ludwig lie to me? I didn't have...
My favorite part of that whole thing is that these women see him walking in here. There's like 3 or 4 women who don't do a thing, and then the women in the shower all of a sudden turning around and they're just like they're the ones that are screaming. But and again, it would be the second time in this movie that a police officer is interrupted in the women's locker room because, of course, in the opening of the Naked Gun movie, the police siren car, the car is going into the women's locker room, which that's trimmed down too in the TV edit for obvious reasons, because in the original edit you get to see women's asses in the shower. But yeah, you get like all these other ones. There's also an extended bit inside of Ludwig's office when Frank goes into there after night, and there's a great bit where he's involved with a tiger rug that like bites the side of his leg, and he doesn't realize until he thinks that's a real tiger biting him, and then he's always like, yeah, and it's like he's like finagling around with the tiger rug, and you get little bits of that in the original movie, and then with the second movie they do the same thing, which also was on CBS in '94. And let me see if I can find anything that I remember from these particular scenes. And yeah, there's stuff in this one that I'm watching again. I really don't remember, like the opening bit where Frank is in the White House with all the people for the press for like the special dinner they're having for Dr. Meinhof, and like there's a whole segment at the beginning where Frank is just like he's next to the captain of the police force, and he's next to this guy. She's next to this guy, and Frank's just like, what's this Cuban cigar that you have here? And then the president's just like, he goes on to this long thing, and the president's just like, Mr. Drebin, he's the Cuban ambassador to the United Nations. And then he gives this look on his face like, what, like, oh, I see. and he says like, "Oh, welcome to the free world." Like stuff like that, I don't remember from the opening of the movie. There's apparently a couple of bits here, but there's a couple of bits that I do remember from the scene where they go into like the place where Jane was working at, and after the explosion and all that, we see Norberg early before we see him in the actual movie, and the scene that I remember briefly, but I'm watching it right here. Let's go ahead and take a look at it real quick.
In his rent, finally spent. Bloodstains, Nordberg?
No, the wife and I are redecorating. This might go nice with beige wallpaper.
Ooh. And then I just realized why that's probably not there anymore. Like, I love in the comments it says, that did not age very well. Like, it's funny, because I think actually Naked Gun 2.5 came just before the OJ shot his wife. So I think that's kind of amusing, and I could probably see why that was never brought back in other areas of this movie. But there is one part I do remember from this part here where they go inside the research institute, and there's that bit where Frank's hard hat falls into the gears and it causes everything to malfunction. And then there's another bit that I remember where for some reason, like, the wall, they're coming out of the research area, and then a couple minutes later you see this sludge coming out of nowhere. I couldn't remember what it started it, but luckily this clip from the extended cut gives us the answer.
Well, I think we have enough information for today. I see that you're very busy here. It looks like you have more pressing things to attend to this afternoon, so I'll just be on my way.
Where's your hat, Frank?
I dropped it off back there.
Of course, you can't go wrong with the Howie Long scream if somebody is running around with his hair on fire. And I love how Richard Griffiths and Priscilla Presley are just playing it straight. They don't ask questions about what the hell is going on. It's just like, just another normal day for them. But again, that's the charm of these movies. Like, the comedy works because everybody plays it so straight and so spot on, and nobody questions anything for more than a brief second, or even a millisecond at that. But
let's keep in touch. Mr. Weinheimer?
Frank?
I won't be bothering you anymore.
This plan has worked 1,185 days without a lost time accident. I think that's going to change now.
I hope you're happy.
That's a great bit. That's one of my favorite edits that sadly didn't make it into the final cut of the movie. And then everything else here is just like little extensions to scenes that you saw in the original movie. Like, there's bits that get callbacks, like the scene in the beginning when Frank's going into the police squad and he bumps the car into the thing of cement. There's a scene where him, Ed, and Norberg are leaving, and you cut back to the car, and you see like a guy trying to cut the cement out of there. There's extended scenes in like the adult shop. There's a bit where Norberg cuts into like the oil tank, I think it is, and like he gets oil spattered all over him, which explains why he has all that oil on him in that scene in the movie where he gets away from the car and then he skids down the hill. There's an extension to the bit where Savage is just like, I want a car out front, something nice, and Ed's just like, can't do that, Savage, and like it's just a continuing bit that keeps going. Nothing really more significant in terms of like anything that's different compared to the original film. There's like extended scenes, like there's an extended part where Frank gets beat up again by the guys in the Chicago Bears suits, and Ed comes back and is just like, hey, go back to your wives and family, and let's like, which I think that's probably in there because it's like the exact revenge for what happened to Dr. Meinhofer in the place where Quentin Habsburg's people were in their evil lair, if you will, like the whole bit with him with the cement, with the oil and the tar and all that, hitting him with the anvil and all that, like stuff like that, like extended stuff like that. Some of it's not as good as the ones from the original Naked Gun version, but it's still fun overall. I don't see anything for the third movie here. I don't know if there's any edits for 33 and a third. I just know that the one thing I do remember is that they used to have like outtakes that they show in the TV credits for it, which I don't think there's anything for. Well, there's at least one I see here. I'll take a look at this real quick. I think I remember this one. This is when he's at the what would you call it? The what is it? A sperm bank, if you will. There's that bit, of course, where Frank goes in there to get information on Tanya Peters and where she is, where she lives, because she works at this place, and he doesn't know that he's actually at a sperm bank, so he continuously goes into this building and eventually gets donates sperm all over the place, which leads into part of the funny bits with the whole subplot of the movie about Leslie Nielsen's character not wanting to have kids and that type of storyline going on here. But there's one bit I do remember from this.
Can't believe you haven't filled out an admittance form. Name and address, please. Carlson Clinic.
The Carlson Clinic was that was the name of it.
Tanya, telephone call, line 1.
Just a minute. I'll take it in the lounge.
All right. Fill these out, and I'll be right back.
I mean, there's nothing really that spectacular in that scene in particular. Like I said, I think 33 1/3 didn't have as many TV edits for this. As far as I know, there might have been a couple, but I can't find all of them on here like I could with the first one and the second one. But the one I do remember was the end credits here. And actually, the end credits are on here, so let's take a quick look at these. Listen to these, if you will.
I am what I am, and I am who I am, and I do what I do, and I do it twice, and that's good.
What's he talking about?
I was only doing you a small favor.
I don't see this.
It's okay.
She do that without getting hurt.
The envelope might be in that bomb.
The game show brought to you by the Lemon Flipper. Everybody see this?
That might be the envelope with a bomb. Keep looking.
Come on, help me, help me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry for the sucky-ass audio here. I couldn't get it any higher than that, but... Okay, maybe there isn't as much for 33 1/3. I mean, Naked Gun 33 1/3 is kind of notoriously known for being the one that has probably the least amount of, like, deleted sequences and all that, and I can't really get a good grasp on all of them on here, but they're out there somewhere, and maybe I'll take a look at them one day soon, but... Yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because, you know, I love these movies, and I love the fact that I can go back and look at some of these moments that most people would probably not even realize existed because you can't really find the Naked Gun movies on TV anymore. You can only find them on Paramount Plus or on DVD, and like I'm kind of surprised Paramount didn't even put it on Paramount Network to promote the movie. Like why would you not do that? I mean, I don't know, but. In the end, it did eventually work out because the Naked Gun did become the big hit that it was this weekend, so there you go. But with all that said, let's go ahead and move on to the last thing I want to cover here. So the biggest controversy of the week, if you even want to call it a controversy per se, at least in my opinion, but I don't know. Like, I don't think it's that big of a deal, but maybe I'm just not reading into this whole thing, but the whole Sydney Sweeney American Eagle controversy. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, here's an example of one of the commercials that's causing a little bit of a stir with most people.
I'm not here to tell you to buy American Eagle jeans. And I definitely won't say that they're the most comfortable jeans I've ever worn. Or that they make your butt look amazing. Why would I need to do that? But if you said that you want to buy the jeans, I'm not going to stop you. But just so we're clear, this is not me telling you to buy American Eagle jeans.
Sydney Sweeney has her jeans.
You see what I did there, right?
Now, that's supposedly one of the lesser of the controversial commercials that are going around for this, if you even want to call it that. But, I don't know, when I first watched it, I think someone made the good point that it feels very reminiscent to what Brooke Shields used to do back in the day for Calvin Klein jeans. I mean, here's one of those commercials I'm talking about.
The secret of life lies hidden in a genetic code. Genes are fundamental in determining the
characteristics of an individual and passing on these characteristics to succeeding generations. Occasionally, certain conditions produce a structural change in the gene, which will bring about the process of evolution. This may occur in one or more of the following ways. Firstly, by selective mating, in which a single gene type proves superior in transmitting its genes to future generations. Secondly, by gene drift, in which certain genes may fade away while other genes persist. And finally, by natural selection, which filters out those genes better equipped than others to endure in the environment. This may result in the origin of an entirely new species, which brings us to Calvin's and the survival of the fittest.
Calvin Klein genes.
Turned on by that? She was 14 years old when she made that, so that means now you're on a list now. So congratulations. But I think that is kind of intriguing that they put her in these provocative positions. But yeah, she was 14. She was like 14, 15 years old when she did these commercials. But I mean, it's definitely weird, but people bought into it back in the day. Like I think someone made a good point about this, where, you know, like Sydney Sweeney did the same thing as Brooke Shields did in this commercial, but this was even more sexualized than Sydney Sweeney's commercial. And because Sydney Sweeney was not 15 when she did this, so I'm trying to figure out what the big deal about this whole thing is. But if you don't know what I'm talking about with this whole thing, here's an article that kind of sums it up here. This is on where do I want to go to read this article on? So this is on Associated Press with this article here, and it says, teen retailer American Eagle Outfitters has a message to its critics who took issue over its denim ad campaign with 27-year-old Sydney Sweeney that sparked a debate over race and Western beauty standards. The campaign, the retailer said, was always about the jeans. In a statement posted on American Eagle's Instagram account on Friday, the retailer said the ad campaign is and always was about the jeans. Her jeans, her story. Will continue to celebrate how everyone wears their AE jeans with confidence, their way. Great jeans look good on everyone. This message marked the first time the teen retailer responded to days of backlash since the ad with the tagline, Sydney Sweeney has great jeans, launched last week. In the run-up to the adlets, the company's chief marketing officer told trade media outlets that it included clever, even provocative language and was definitely going to push buttons. It's unclear if the company knows much controversy the ad could raise. Most of the negative reception focused on the view that used the word jeans instead of jeans while discussing the blonde-haired, blue-eyed actor from HBO's Euphoria and White Lotus. Critics found the most troubling was a teaser video in which Sweeney said genes are passed down from parents to offsprings, often determining traits like hair color, personality, and even eye color. My genes are blue. The video appeared on American Eagle's Facebook page and other social media channels, but is not part of the ad campaign. Some critics saw the wordplay as a nod, either unintelligible or deliberate, to eugenics, a discredited theory that held humanity could be improved through selective breeding through certain traits. Other commenters accused detractors of reading too much into the campaign's message. Some marketing experts say the buzz is always good, even if it's not uniformly positive. If you're trying to follow all the rules, you'll make lots of people happy, but you'll fail. Alan Adamson, co-founder of marketing consultancy Metaphor, said, the rocket won't take off. So yeah, and it also isn't helping that the White House is also getting involved in this, especially considering that, as we found out this week, that Sydney Sweeney is registered as a Florida Republican, which to that I say, so, I mean, look, I have nothing against Republicans or Democrats. I just want people to just don't be assholes to people, and I don't have anything bad to say about Sydney Sweeney. Like, she's the type of person I think keeps that under wraps and just lets her acting and her personality be the thing that people like her for. I mean, that's just my thing with this whole thing. And the whole controversy to me doesn't make a whole lot of sense. The only thing I really have a huge problem with this whole thing is the fact that the White House is getting involved in this one. It's just like, you're leading the free world. Focus on the problems that people want you to cover. Like, focus on the stuff that you guys fucked up on. You know, we know why the White House is getting involved in this, because they want you to keep away from stuff like the Epstein files, or the fact that, you know, Trump got involved in the war between Israel and Palestine. Like, they want you to forget that type of stuff, and sadly, that's just something where it's just like, that's the big problem with this whole thing, is the fact that they're covering more of that instead of focusing. They're covering more stuff like what's going on here with Sydney Sweeney, instead of doing what you're supposed to do as the leader of the free world and the people who are running the country. Like, I mean, it's just, I don't know. To me, this really is not a controversy per se. And we've had a lot of these stupid controversies and scandals that really are not that big. It should not be as big of a deal as they're making them out to be. But, we just had that recently with, just this week we had the big story about, Justin Baldoni, who's like suing he's suing the insurers from his movie It Ends With Us to cover the legal fees because, clearly the fact that he lost the battle with Blake Lively, the guy just can't admit that he's a loser and just can't take the hint that you lost and just move on with your life. Like, this is literally what I think of Justin Baldoni when he's making these claims like this.
Oh, and all the juvenile things I've ever heard. You lost, Fillmore. Don't be such a baby.
Like he's the kindergarten kid from South Park when he's running for president against Ike, and Ike wins all the time. He's just like, I want a recount, and Mr. Garrison's just like, you lost, Fillmore, it's over, stop being such a baby, and he just goes into like a temper tantrum, like, ah, like that's what I feel like when I see Justin Baldoni continuing to try to push his name out there. It's just like, you lost, dude, it's over, just get on with your life. It's just, the whole thing makes no sense whatsoever, and I get that people want to get involved in this because, hey, it's a great distraction from the true chaotic, horrible shit that's going on in our government right now. But with that said, though, it's just like, what really is it going to do by going into this whole thing, by doing stuff like this? Like, getting worked up over really not much at all. Like, I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I haven't seen all the commercials, so I don't know if the controversy really is fully there for a reason. But when I put this up there to people and I asked them if they really if this was really what the controversy was all about, most of them were basically just kind of like, yeah, I kind of agree with you. Like, this whole thing makes no sense whatsoever. Why we're getting so iffy about this. Like some of the comments I have here. One person said, as someone who works in advertising, I don't think this has a malicious dog whistle undertone. Sometimes you're just lost in the sauce and you think you're cooked with the line. I always say it's super frustrating having all these white creators tell me how I should feel about this, or that I'm part of the problem because I don't see this as being terrible, etc., etc. And then somebody else says, 1, I can see why people are mad. This is a very weird tone to it. 2, hasn't this most attractive Hollywood lady right now doing something off-putting in an ad been a thing since the 1980s, which, case in point, what I just showed you with the Brooke Shields thing. And then here's another one here that says, I don't know if that's implied, but the objectifying marketing around her is weird for a celebrity of her stature. The bathwater soap thing and her jeans need to be in your card is unusual. And also keep in mind that also there's a thing where she's promoting the what's that shampoo that she promotes with she's like this soap genie or something like that. Let me see if I can find it here. Dr. Squatch is what it is. That she's been doing those commercials for the last year, and nobody really has a big deal about that per se. But I mean, I don't know. Like, the whole controversy to me really doesn't feel like a controversy per se, especially considering that there are so much more important things going on in the world, like the way the government's being run right now with the people that are now in charge. And yeah, and I hate that I have to get involved in this because I'm essentially agreeing with the people that I just completely just made fun of. Like it's just, I mean, the whole thing just makes no sense to me, in my opinion. But then again, maybe I'm missing something out there. But if anyone out there wants to tell me, please let me know, because I'll be more than willing to listen. But with all that said, though, let's go ahead and move on to some recommendations for the week, and then we can get on out of here. So in terms of physical media releases this week, it's mostly just catalog titles and stuff that, like, if you didn't get the Late Night with the Devil Steelbook, that's coming out this week on 4K. There's also the 4K debut for Master Commander: The Far Side of the World. But for the recommendation this week, I will talk about a show that I just came across this week, which I actually am really impressed by for a couple of different reasons. It's a show called The Hunting Wives. It's a show on Netflix. And it's essentially set up as like an old school primetime soap opera, like something from back in the days of like Dallas and Dynasty, that type of show. And you have a show that's set in Maple Brook, a fictional East Texas town, where you follow this girl named Sophie, played by Brittany Snow, who's a young woman and mom, and falls into an affluent socialite seductive orbit where a circle of housewives have dangerous secrets themselves that culminates in her becoming a prime suspect in the death of a teenage girl. You have a cast that also includes Dermot Mulroney, Chrissy Metz, Jamie Ray Newman, Malin Ackerman, and this is done by Rebecca Cutter, who I feel like I should know who that name is. That name sounds familiar, but one of the producers is Julianne Robinson, who's worked on shows like Master of Sex, Nurse Jackie, Orange is the New Black, Parks and Recreation, so she's done a lot of shows you're very familiar with. And the show overall is a really good, fun primetime soap opera. Certainly more risque, especially considering that Brittany Snow and Malin Ackerman go down on each other a lot. Like, seriously, there's a lot of lesbian sex between those two in the show, which is probably a selling point for the men out there who don't really want to see the show. But hey, you get to see the chick from American Dreams and Silk Spectre II banging each other. That's more than reason to watch the show. And I love how they actually hired they set an intimacy coordinator on the set there to make sure if they feel comfortable with nudity and sex scenes or not. And like it's a show that is very much old school 1980s, 1990s primetime soap opera cheese. But I think this is more fun because it's on Netflix and they have more free range to do whatever they want. They have more creative control on what they can do. They don't have a studio backing them basically to, like, you know, we can't do this on television, but on Netflix you can pretty much get away with whatever you want to. And yeah, I was actually kind of impressed at how much I enjoyed this show. It's actually pretty cool. Like if you like stuff like old school Dallas, Dynasty, Knots Landing, those type of shows, The Hunting Wives I think is a show you might definitely get a kick out of, in my opinion. But so with all that said, that's going to wrap this episode of the Viewing Network Live up for this week. And, of course, next week I'll be at Still City Con, so more than likely it'll be a very shortened show unless something major breaks in the world of news, which I'll cover it then. But I think next week should be an easy week as I rest after the long weekend ahead next time around. But with all that said, thank you so much for listening to this and watching it. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, go ahead and hit the like button, hit the notification button, the subscribe button. Check out the 100th episode we did, and also check out the playlist to see the other 100 episodes we've done. So with all that said, I'm heading off, and I will see you guys next week. Thanks for watching and listening, and I'll see you next time. Until then, we are out.